Welcome to the X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Charles Epstein. Today I am joined by Michelle Strasburger, CEO of HR Rebooted, a company that's at the forefront of digital transformation and human resources, developing innovative tools for AI governance, AI oversight, and workforce management in the modern workplace where AI is a resource. Michelle joins me today from Colebrook, New Hampshire. Michelle, hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad you were able to make the time. Full disclosure, we had to reschedule, so I appreciate your flexibility. And I have to tell you, I don't ordinarily make this a part of the conversation, but these days I seem to make it part of every conversation, asking my guests, particularly guests who are based in the North, because I'm down here in South Florida. And when I tell people, generally speaking, I'm in South Florida, they're like, oh, that's great, wonderful, thinking the weather. But the weather is really only optimal for about 3 months down here. So this time of year, I get to really, really work out the old Schadenfreude, and I get a kick out of hearing how cold it is up north. And it must be particularly frigid in New Hampshire. Please tell
Oh,
me
I've got one.
yes.
I've got one for you today. It was negative 17 this morning when we woke up here in the
Excellent.
North Country.
Love to hear it. Love to music to my ears. Anyway, I really do appreciate your taking the time. And as I said, your flexibility. I was looking over your LinkedIn profile, and you've done benefits administration, executive compensation, talent management, and talent acquisition, health and wellness, now AI governance for HR. Is there anything in the HR field that you haven't done?
Well, there's a lot of things I think that don't end up on the HR job description, like cleaning toilets or unclogging toilets that we end up doing. But no, I think I've done a lot of different things in HR. And the one thing I haven't really spent a lot of time on, and you don't want me doing, is payroll.
Why don't we want you doing that?
It's just not one of my favorite skill sets.
Okay. So if you had a choice, I'm not even going to ask. Well, I'm going to ask this. If you had a choice between payroll and cleaning toilets, no, I'm not going to ask that. We're going to move. We're going to move on.
It's
We're
probably
going to
better for
try to
everyone if
take
I
the high
clean the
road here.
toilet.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough. Good answer. Anyway, what inspired you to start HR Rebooted? What gap in the AI governance marketplace were you or are you looking to fill?
AI adoption is increasing in organizations, and there is a disconnect between what we're seeing in AI and compliance, and laws and regulations are really lagging, especially in the U.S. We're starting to see some being enacted in the U.K. And globally, but not really here in the U.S. We're seeing some standards like the NIST standards and ISO 42001, but we're really not seeing a lot of these standards coming into our workplace. And so leaders and organizations and HR professionals are having to figure this out on their own. And so we wanted to give HR professionals the tools they needed to lead confidently in this changing world, and give them the tools to manage risk and manage AI to make sure that they were putting this transformative tool in their organizations and doing it in a way that they felt confident, that was strategic, and they weren't just throwing a tool out there and not really knowing how it was being used, that they weren't using it in a way that wasn't transparent, that they could communicate effectively to their employees about what this means for the organization and what this means for their jobs. And so that's why we're here today, and we have a governance tool that helps organizations do just that.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit more about HR Rebooted, exactly how you guys work, what you do, get into that a little bit more. Um, last week, we did an X-Files article based on two new surveys. One was the Edelman's 2025 Trust Barometer survey, and it indicated that the top barrier to AI adoption in the U.S. Is trust. 70% people don't trust it, hence they're apprehensive or they simply don't embrace it. Obviously, trust is fundamental to AI governance. I'm assuming that's the major selling point. So when you're out there speaking to CHROs, HR professionals, how does that conversation go when you talk about trust and AI? Where are they at? Um, how much, when you have that conversation, do you feel the needle moving? It's a little bit late in the day for me to get, my tongue fully engaged. Um, what are you hearing when you have that conversation? What are you seeing?
There is the trust factor comes down to how are we using AI in organizations to make decisions, right? How much emphasis are we putting on AI to make decisions about the business, about job displacement, about employee performance, right? Are we leaning into AI a little too much in those areas as leaders in the organization? And so, and we're starting to see lawsuits because of that, right? Because of biases and because we're putting too much weight on performance factors that are driven by AI. And governance helps create much more strategy around that, and it creates a systematic approach, and it gives employees more faith in the process, right? That we build our governance on the NIST standards, and we have a 7-step process to governance. And so it gives the employees and the organization a systematic approach to governance. And we look at everything from training to communication to governance committees to risk factors and all of those things. And if an organization is making decisions using AI, they're communicating that to the employees, and they're looking at building transparency in the organization so that employees then understand what's going on and what's going to happen. There are also concerns around data privacy, right? Are we putting things
Mhm.
out into the ether, right? And with governance, you can have those controls around that so that employees know exactly what's going into AI and how we're using it. And data privacy can be addressed through your governance controls, and it helps alleviate some of those concerns.
Tell me a little bit more about those 7 steps.
Sure. So we have 7 steps to governance. The first step is to set up a governance committee. So that would be within your organization, a general governance committee, which might include your policy oversights, your culture committee. How do we make sure that our AI aligns with our culture? It might include your IT team, your marketing team, your legal team, and any risk teams that you have. You might have one on data privacy or data concerns or data usage. So, whatever governance committees that you want to oversee your governance. The second step would be your use cases. So, how are we going to use AI in our organization? And our approach is to start small. So, we don't want to boil the ocean. We want to start small and pick some small use cases across the organization on how we would use AI. And then we assign risk to that. And that would be something that we look at regularly in our organization to try to mitigate that risk. Do we have human oversight? Do we put up some guardrails to control that risk? How are we controlling that risk? And the risk could be something like a bias, right? Because the systems are based upon whatever we put in it. So if we're biased and we're putting data in it, the system is then biased. So are we going to have some oversight, some human oversight or some other oversight guardrails um, or filters to manage that? Our third step is documentation. So our policies, any other documentation you have, our agendas and things from our governance committees. Our fourth step is training and communication. So how are we training our employees on effective use of our AI? I saw something the other day. I asked a question on a social media platform about effective use of AI, and somebody said, "Oh, I just trust that people are going to use it. I hire people I can trust." And then I wish them
Okay.
well.
Good for you.
And good for you. And you have to train people on how to use it the way you want them to use it, and train them on the risks and train them on how to set the appropriate guardrails. And so training is a big portion of
That
what we
that's
do,
in
and
that's
communication.
insanely cavalier to take that kind of approach.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
I think
Okay,
it's
I'm sorry.
important to hire people that you trust, but I think you also have to train them. I mean, if you give somebody a car and give them to keep the keys to the car and don't teach them how to drive, they're inevitably going to have a car accident. It's the same thing with AI.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Just simply trusting is not enough. There's obviously more to it than that. Go ahead, I'm sorry. We're
Mhm.
we're we're at what, step 4?
Step four was our training. Um, Step five is our safeguards. We have guardrails and filters that we have in the system and other safeguards that you would put in place to make sure that your systems are not slipping, hallucinating, drifting, things like that. So you're setting it up for success. My favorite example is if you want to know about dinosaurs and you ask AI, tell me about dinosaurs, is you're going to get a lot of information that is not what you're looking for, right? But if you want to know about the T Rex, you're going to ask AI, tell me about the T Rex and what period it lived in. You're going to get much more
Mhm,
succinct information. And so that's what
mhm,
Guardrails does. It helps you get much more succinct information from AI instead of getting a lot of gobbledygook. Step six is monitor and improve. And like a lot of change management initiatives, AI is a change management initiative. You want to monitor and improve your process. So, continually going back through the process and making sure that you are looking at all of your risks, updating your guardrails, updating your training, updating your processes. The AI is changing so quickly that the minute you're trained on it, it's old hat. And so you have to
mhm.
retrain on it and retrain.
Sure.
And the nice thing about that is that it's incremental. So once you learn it, you don't have to relearn it. You just learn incremental pieces, and everything you learn is something new. And so you can learn how to apply new things to it over time. And then our seventh step is scale and grow. So how do you take this to the next level? And that's where I think HR can really take that proverbial strategic seat at the table and
Yeah.
really think about how do I grow the organization from a training standpoint, from a strategic standpoint of what do I need to do from an organizational structure standpoint to position this organization for success from both a human
Right.
and AI resource standpoint.
Yeah, you anticipated my next question, but a couple questions to these 7 steps. Number 1, how much of this can be automated?
Our so we have three different offerings. So our AI roadmap is the first step. That system is where you set everything up. So that's our administrative portal. That's only humans in the loop, as we call it, and so that's all where you set everything up. That's not automated. Our second software is called Compass. And so that takes everything you set up in Roadmap and then applies it to your AI. And so then that's automated. And that tells you how your organization is using AI, gives you the transparency, um, and then reports it back into your dashboard within Roadmap. And so that's all automated within AI and it locks it down. So if you put within the system, you have a policy and roadmap that says we don't want anybody using a social security number in our AI systems. And
Mm.
somebody puts a social security number within Compass, it will stop, it will flag, and it will notify HR or leadership, however you have it set up in the system.
Is there a particularly slippery, difficult challenge? For instance, I've had various conversations actually before the AI dominated the conversation, just with, CTIO, CIOs talking about, for instance, the thorny issue of shadow IT, where people are using their own tools, and it's outside of the ability of IT to really monitor that. Seems to me that that
Absolutely.
is also a problem with all of these AI tools, and that people have access, pretty ready access to that. How do you police that?
Absolutely, that's a problem, and that's where your policies come into play, right? And right now in organizations, it's a bit of the wild wild west. So you have some organizations saying, "Absolutely not, we're not using AI at all because we're not ready for it and we're not quite sure how to use it." And in those organizations, employees are using it on their phone under their desk or
Of
maybe even using
course.
it on a computer, and they might be putting trade secrets in They might be putting social security numbers in or personal information in. And then you have the other side where organizations are saying, go ahead and use it. We love AI. We're technology forward. Um, Use it for whatever you can. It'll improve productivity. And they don't have the policies in place. And so then you have the same thing happening, but on the other extreme where they're using it freely and they're not really understanding how they're using it and what damage they're doing, and they're
Yeah.
putting information in. And so it really needs to kind of be in the middle where there's a policy and people are being held to that policy. There was a recent article in SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resources Management, where they stated that organizations are really locking down on this and terminating people for using AI outside of whatever the stated policy is, either using it when they're saying it's not allowed or using it outside of those parameters.
Yeah, it's tricky. I'm assuming part of what you do is sort of helping organizations find that Goldilocks zone,
Hmm.
where it's somewhere between saying no and saying, it's the Wild West, bring, all you can eat, whatever.
Right.
It's an interesting challenge. Um, so you started to get into HR's place at the table, which is a time honored, to put it charitably, conversation. HR always needs a place at the table. How is HR going to elbow their way to that table? What's your position in the era of AI? What is HR's role today, given what's going on?
This is the opportunity. This I'm very excited for this for my HR colleagues. Yeah, I've been in HR for over 20 years, and I've seen this HR professionals hungry for this opportunity, and it's here and now. I think a lot of the administrative pieces of the HR role are going to go away, and those that harness it and take this as a strategic opportunity to really focus on upskilling and reskilling individuals, of looking at the organization saying where are the jobs going to be disrupted and how do I proactively help the organization rebalance, right? And not just in a way of like, oh, AI is going to take over, we're just going to cut 25%, right? Strategically thinking about how do I build an organization that leverages both the human and the AI resources so that we can achieve the ultimate goals of this organization. I think that's going to be the key for HR professionals to take that strategic seat. And then how do we make sure that we are effectively using AI in an ethical way? How are we governing it? How are we making sure that we're using it effectively so that we're not putting ourselves out there for a lawsuit and for other risks, and that we're treating our people fairly and equitably so that we don't have any of these, employee concerns. And I think right now it's okay to say we don't yet know, but we're putting a process in place so that we understand, and this is how we're going to make decisions on our process for employment decisions or on AI systems or on governance. And these are the people you can talk to about your concerns.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've had several really interesting conversations in podcasts, and actually, I've had a couple of people contribute articles to the X Files or Substack on the relationship between AI governance and innovation, where you need those guardrails in order to innovate. So, like the old Robert Frost line, where free verse is playing tennis without a net. You need that net to impose some structure. And
Hmm.
it's that structure that allows you to be creative. Um, and in our pre-production call, we talked about AI's impact on employee well-being. What is the connection between AI governance and employee well-being?
I think there's a huge connection. Like I said before, about there was a study done, and I don't have the name of the study, so I'll have to find it and send it to you. But that about 50% of employees are concerned about job displacement. That's a pretty big number. And if 50% of your
That is a big
employees come
number.
to work every day worried about whether they're going to have a job tomorrow, or if some piece of their job is going away, what is their job going to look like? What are the expectations, right? If we don't know what's expected of us and we don't have that security, it creates concern and stress. And that stress can lead to burnout. So I think there's a huge piece of that. A lot of them are concerned about data privacy and decision transparency. And so if we're worried about our jobs not being there, or worried about our jobs being disrupted, and then we're worried that our bosses are making decisions based upon not our really our work product, but what the AI tool is telling them, are we going to stay in our jobs? So governance gives employers that systematic approach again to help manage that. It's a change management transformation we're going through, and having that systematic approach of how are we going to work through this? How are we going to train our employees on how we're going to use AI? What does AI look like in our organization? Because it's going to be different for every organization. How does it align with our culture? How does it impact our employees? And how do we then communicate that to our employees, and what's our process to communicate that over time? Because what we communicate today is going to be different than what we communicate in 3 years and in 5 years. And so, what's our plan, our communication strategy for employees, and how do we answer questions? There was a recent study that came out from Predictive Index. Actually, they did a white paper. It was really well done. That talked about, when you talked about trust, that they did a study that HR employees are actually leaning more on HR professionals to answer some of those questions, because
Mm.
they have the trust and they know that HR professionals are starting to have those conversations with leadership. They're like, are we going to recruit for these positions? Are we going to backfill these positions? Are we going to eliminate some of these positions? And so they're going to HR and starting to ask, is my job secure? Do I have to worry? Do I have to worry about feeding my family in a year or 2 years? So I think HR is going to be that point person.
Yeah, and I think it's in a weird way unfair to burden HR with that kind of question to ask HR, is my job going to be here? I think it's probably an unanswerable question. I mean, you can placate somebody and tell them what they want to hear, but I think ultimately it's on the employee and frankly on HR and the organization to give employees a path forward. If you're just worried about your particular job, it's sort of like Wayne Gretzky talks about. What's his term? You skate to where the puck is going to be, and
Hmm.
you need to figure out what your plan is a year down the road and what some of the opportunities might be that go beyond perhaps what you do now or leverage what you do now into some other positions. And how do you build, value in this, what skills you need to develop in order to have value. So simply to ask HR, where am I going to be in a year's time? I don't think that's a really fair question. And I think HR, who gives you a concrete answer, is probably doing you a disservice.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I think that this is also where HR can take that strategic seat again, if they've got governance in place and they can say, right, maybe I'm not sure where your job is because we haven't thought that far ahead, but we have a process for this, right? We have a plan, we have governance in place, and this is the process we're going through. This is the committee that's working on that. These are the people we can point you to. And this is the process we're going through. Separately, earlier I said we have three products. Our third product is Workforce Navigator, and that tool gives HR um, an application that allows them to see which jobs in the organization will be disrupted because of AI in the next 3 to 5 years, and then drill down to which jobs then will be available so that they can put people into those roles. And then how do you then upskill and reskill those people into those jobs so that you can then sit down and have those conversations, maybe not with one employee, but with a full department and with the full organization, so you can have that strategic view of the organization of like, okay, this is how the organization is going to be fully disrupted because of AI, and this is what we're going to do about it, and here's the plan. So instead of working reactively, you can proactively start working towards that and start getting people trained up. So instead of having people worried about it for 3 years and then the gauntlet falls, you can say, okay, your job's going to be disrupted, but we have a plan for you. And this is
Right,
how we're going to get you there over the next 3 to 5 years. That's a much better conversation than
for
having
sure.
Joe from accounting come to you and say, what's my career look like? And you go, I don't know.
I don't have a crystal
Maybe we'll
ball.
figure something out and I'll
Yeah.
give you some LinkedIn learning.
Right, 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 exactly. No, that makes 100% sense. So, this time of year, again, my two questions turn on weather and what's in store for the new year. So now that we've been through the weather portion of this conversation, what does HR Rebooted have in store for 2026?
It's gonna be an exciting year. It's a really exciting year. We've launched a roadmap. We just kicked off beta for a roadmap, and we are going to be launching in Q1 Compass and Workforce Navigator. So we'll have two new tools to help HR leaders lead confidently during this transformation
So,
in the new
so this
year.
navigator tool that you were describing to me has not been launched formally.
Not yet. Yeah,
Ah,
Q1.
that's a cool tool. I have to have you
Mhm.
back and talk about that. I'm sorry, I
That would be
cut you
great.
off. Yeah,
I would
no,
love that.
that is really interesting. I really like that. I cut you off. You gathering a head of steam there.
No, I said it's just we're gonna have some really great tools to help, HR leaders and organizations lead confidently in the new year. So as AI transforms and impacts organizations, especially where there's not a lot of guidance out there with legislation and, government has said, "Do what you want with it." So now we have to figure out how to govern it. So we're giving organizations those tools.
Excellent. Michelle, it's a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this. Thanks so much. And as I said at the outset, I really appreciate your flexibility because I know we had to reschedule this because of me. So I really do appreciate this. And please keep warm. What did you say? It's in the negative. Is that
It was
with wind
negative
chill?
17 this morning. No,
With
that's just
or
the
without wind chill?
base.
That's an absolute.
Without, yeah,
That sounds even dangerous walking outside. It's so cold.
it's very cold. Yeah, yeah.
I
That's stay
mean,
inside with the wood stove going, feeding the wood
yeah,
stove.
that's like weather where it's really hard to breathe.
Do you know what's interesting? A fun fact for your listeners up here. So our kids we've been up here for 5 years. We were in New Hampshire, but this part of the state during the pandemic. And in 5 years, our boys have had one snow day this whole time. And so they have a whole rule on when they go out for recess, and they'll go out for recess until it's 0 degrees outside. So we have some pretty hardy kids in this part of the
Ye
country.
Yeah, I would say, I don't think I'd last more than
Yeah.
5 minutes, but, and, I've been down here for 25 years, and, that's not built into muscle memory. That goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. We love
Anyway,
it.
yeah, yeah, great. Anyway, Michelle, thanks so much. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.